Welcome to the AI Files Podcast, your ultimate destination for staying updated on all things artificial intelligence. You can find us on Apple Podcasts as well as YouTube. I'm Jamie Basilico, co host of the AI Files. As a data and AI technical specialist and architect, I have over 35 years of expertise in data related and AI domains, having worked with many Fortune 500 companies throughout my career. Please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, and the views and opinions expressed by myself and the co hosts are their own and do not represent the views of Microsoft. So, wanted to welcome everybody today to our 16th episode. As you notice, it's just me for today. Shadab, who's my co host, is taking some well deserved personal time, and he'll be back on the next episode. And yes, my voice is a little shot. Seem to have caught something somewhere in between the last episode and this one. So my voice is not normally this deep. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, anyway, I wanted to get started. There's certainly been no rest for news in this summer cycle, and this week is certainly no different. So again, I'm coming to you as a single host today, so it'll just be me going through some of these news and launches and some things that I think are going to be relevant for everybody listening to this. So in that today may be a little bit shorter than our normal what was supposed to be half hour episodes seem to be taking a little bit longer than that, certainly a little closer to an hour, but today will definitely be closer to that half hour mark, if not a little bit shorter. But again, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of news and things that are going on that I think would be important or relevant for everybody listening to this. There's certainly been a few things that have come up with OpenAI in this past week. I'll hit a couple of different news, quote unquote, snippets from OpenAI, and I guess the biggest one to me at least, some people might have difference of opinions, at least for what I'm going to go through. But there's been an executive shakeup at OpenAI. Not as big as I guess the turmoil. What was it, like 6 months ago, with the ousting of the founder and CEO, um, in terms of Altman. But we certainly have some shakeups nonetheless. So John Schulman, who was one of the co-founders of OpenAI, actually left OpenAI to go to Anthropic. And he'll be focusing in on more about AI alignment and also doing hands-on technical work. What does that mean for the company? There's obviously multiple executives and several different co-founders, more than just Sam. So I think this goes back, at least to me, is there's certainly some focus on things that relate back to the security of their models, the alignment of such. So, what does that mean for the company overall? Hold that thought, because there's some more news. Like I said, there's been a few things at OpenAI this past week. So that's number one as it relates to some of these executive shakeups. Greg Brockman, I think originally when this news broke, I think people thought he was leaving as well. Again, Greg is one of the co-founders. He's also president. He's taking a sabbatical until the end of the year. So I guess 4 months, 5 months, just to relax and recharge. I think the official statement from Greg or from OpenAI is he's put in a lot of effort since the beginning of OpenAI over the past whatever it was 8-9 years, and wanted to take a sabbatical. So certainly give need for where it's due in terms of taking that recharge. But to me, this one I think sent out more waves in the community when it was first announced, because thought Greg was leaving as well, but that does not seem to be the case. There are a couple of other departures. Again, to me, people leave companies all the time. So Peter Deng, he was a product manager, also left OpenAI. So to me, and what OpenAI had actually put out there as an actual statement, says that OpenAI remains committed to its mission, with Sam Altman expressing confidence in the company's ability to continue its success, whether that means rolling out new models or interactions with they have with companies. So I don't take this as anything that's, oh my God, the sky's falling at OpenAI. like I said, there's been a bunch of news with OpenAI. I'll jump to the next one, and that's the really focus on the current latest model with OpenAI, and that's GPT 4o. I guess this would also align with GPT 4o mini, but there has been a medium risk associated with the model. And I believe this is something that OpenAI alluded to when GPT 4o was announced just a couple months ago, back in May. And there was a research document that was alluded to outlining some safety measures and risks based upon the evaluation of the GPT 4o model. So, what's the, if I had to give you the cliff notes of what is in this paper, it was the paper deemed that the model was a medium risk. And what is that in? Well, it's really based upon that there's a high risk that the model can persuade people based upon the way that the model can write text for human consumption. So basically, a reader of the output of a model might be more persuaded in terms of the things that it's reading in terms of opinions than if it was written by a human written text. So, bottom line is the GPT-4o models can do a better job at humans in terms of persuading. So, if you carry that through, then it could pose a more of a risk in terms of the model because it could do a better job at swaying people's perception or their thoughts. So, when this paper goes into a little bit more detail, there was external testing for the red teamers. So there's certainly this external piece, but a lot of what was in the assessment also relied on OpenAI's internal evaluations of the tools. So I don't know. Use that at your own thoughts. I mean, does that mean that the models are even um, more risky because they can sway people even more? Well, time will tell. I guess the biggest thing here is that this comes when in a time period where there's a lot of ongoing criticism. It's not just OpenAI, but any of these different models, as far as like, does it have the needed safety standards and protocols for the things that are actually putting in there, or at least being put into the models? So, this points back to, I know California's got some pretty potent regulatory changes that they're looking at. So, will this report only help in the things that California is trying to put as far as safety standards? Time will tell. In another piece of news with OpenAI, like I mentioned, there's a lot that's going on this past week, and it is related in some way to the news that John Cholman was leaving, and also with the sabbatical of Greg. But OpenAI certainly, in my opinion, saw a void where it related to safety capabilities in its models or in the company itself. So they actually had just appointed a new member to the board. His name is Zico Coulter. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and as I just mentioned, he joined the board of directors. So what his job is going to be to focus on AI safety within OpenAI. And Coulter has got certainly a key background for safety. So he has research centers at AI safety. Certainly that background makes him a valuable addition to OpenAI's governance and the board. Like I mentioned, strong academic, strong industry background. He worked at C3 AI, Bosch, and also was the startup of an AI company called Gray Swan. So I look at it, there's some departures at OpenAI, but they're bringing some industry leaders and at least in Zico, a person that could fit that role on the board and provide some thoughts around the alignment. So kind of keeping on the safety theme, there's been some focus as of late from the Senate, specifically Chuck Schumer, on passing some bills, or at least I'm going to call attaching some legislation around deepfakes. This comes at no surprise. I mean, we're in an election season here in the U.S., and I know that there's certain fear, if you will, for what might be a deep fake of any of the candidates, whether it's at the top of the ticket or all the way down. And it's more than just obviously political. It could be anything, company wise, deep faking somebody for any nefarious reason. But what Chuck Schumer has actually put forth are a bills to regulate the AI deepfakes. And as I mentioned before, especially those targeting political candidates to protect the democracy here in the US. So what's interesting is these are not bills that are going to stand on its own. Whatever your political views are, you got to think about the way our system works. Typically, it's here's some bills. They're usually aligned with some other type of activity. In this case, there's existing bills for defense policies. So the way that I read it, the intent is that Chuck Schumer is going to be aligning these deepfake safeties with existing bills that have funding attached to it for defense spending. So, put another way, it's a quick way of actually fast tracking some of these concepts or ideas because they're going to be tied to other legislation and funding for defense. Now, whether or not you agree with that tactic, that's another thing. But the good news here is that there is bipartisan support. So it's not just Democrats or Republicans. This is coming across the board. And there are some other various AI bills progressing through the various different committees, whether it's the House or the Senate. So this AI legislation is certainly being linked with national security concerns, and there's things in here with cybersecurity alignment and/or things for AI training and military uses or in officers. So there is some bigger play at hand here as it relates to this type of legislation. So let's get into some of the launches. It's more than just news. So there's two things that I'll bring up, for this episode. So Amazon has already a image generator. It's called Titan. So they just released Titan 2, or Titan Image Generator version 2. So what's interesting about this new capability is it allows users to guide image generation through reference images, edit visuals, and be able to remove backgrounds and generate variations off of that. So some of the advanced features that are within this image generator is that allows the user to detect and segment multiple foreground objects and generate color conditioned images. And then being able to do that, again, as I said, to maintain a consistent feel based upon referenced images. And that's a big thing when we think about like DALL-E 3 or some of the other image generators out there, is that how well are they going to be consistent with the previous image. I know in some of the images that I've generated off of AI, if you start to change your prompt, it may not give you exactly what it did before. So being able to have a consistent aesthetic reference based upon the images, I think is huge. And we are starting to see that across other image generator tools. As far as the training data, so AWS has been somewhat vague on what data they use to train this model, citing it's using competitive advantage to create the IP and any other concerns that were related to training data. So take that as you will. I don't think you could turn around any days recent where we're seeing new models and whether or not they're trained on some proprietary data. We'll take it at its word right now in terms of what AWS is offering. So let's turn to something a little bit more, I'll call it futuristic in some of these launches. Figure. Figure is a company, again, that's building humanoid robots. And Figure is backed by OpenAI, but they've come out with Figure O2. So this is their latest humanoid robot model. And the focus of these models, it's not for Terminator, hopefully, knock on my desk, but it's really about a robot designed to do factory work or household work. I'll put in the show notes. Actually, all these things I'll put in the show notes, but the video actually shows the robot in like a factory setting doing some of these tasks. So what's interesting here is that some of the enhanced capabilities. As I said before, it's based upon OpenAI, so that's the brains. It's got improved visual reasoning, so it's leveraging some of these latest capabilities from OpenAI. But it also has increased the scale of freedom, the way that these models can actually move. And there's six. What's different on this robot, as I said, it's based upon that improved vision reasoning, and part of that is there's six different cameras on board right now to help with this like visual reasoning based upon the models and what it can do in terms of that semantic grounding on what it sees around it to be able to make those decisions. The other thing too is that one of the things that Figure is really positioning with Figure 02 is the increased performance. So being able to do 3 times the amount of computations and or AI inferencing from its predecessor one. So upgraded battery pack as well to increase the longevity, I guess, before you got to plug in Figure 02, but be able to run 20 hours in a day. So that's more than most humans, right? So we'll see where that goes with Figure. A couple of other quick things, a couple of use cases that I thought were interesting. So JP Morgan Chase has rolled out a chatbot, again, based upon OpenAI technologies. So this chatbot is being rolled out to 60,000 employees within JP Morgan Chase. And the main focus is actually going to be to have this AI assistant help in writing emails and reports. As I mentioned already, it's tightly integrated with OpenAI. That's what it used to develop. So what's also, I think, interesting in this, and I think this is true, and it's got to be true for companies rolling out AI, you can't just take a tool and dump it on your workforce without any training. So what JP Morgan Chase is doing is they're training all 60,000 people to be trained in prompt engineering, how to maximize the tool's performance. Just because I put an AI assistant in the hands of somebody doesn't mean they're going to know what to do with it. So that's important. I think that's something that other companies should follow lead for sure, in terms of that training. And, future plans, obviously, assuming this goes well, JP Morgan has plans to enhance and roll out additional type of productivity enhancements based upon proprietary data that they may be using. So they certainly have plans to avail this to more complex tasks. Because let's be serious and let's be obvious here. Writing emails and writing reports, that's not that complex. Any model can do that, but they certainly have plans to move forward with more complex tasks. They obviously didn't go into detail because that's more of their proprietary sauce. So the one last one, as far as some news, is Page and Microsoft unveiled its next generation AI models for good. And this is really focused around cancer diagnostics. So Page introduced something called Virchow 2 and Virchow 2G, which these are advanced AI models for cancer pathology. So they looked at many different patients. I think it was 225,000 or so patients over 45 different countries. And what they did is they collected different pathology slides, actually over 3 million of them. And that was used for the training of these models. And the intent here is that it's a wide application around discovering cancer. So 40 different tissue types were in these samples, and it really is meant to be used for cancer diagnostics and trying to determine the accuracy of, is this cancer or not, and the efficiency of those models. So to me, this is really where, making strides in medical capabilities with these models. And as I mentioned before, AI for good, very important. So what's interesting here is that Page is actually releasing this, or at least their Virchow 2 model. It's available for non-commercial use, and it's non-commercial research use on Hugging Face. So open to everybody to use it. But they are making a full suite available for commercial use. And again, that's where the partnership with Microsoft comes through. So that's it for today. Like I mentioned, short, sweet. You'll see the show notes for all these things that I just went through, and hopefully everyone gets a chance to read through those notes, and see everybody next time. Thanks again.